It was 20 years ago today, Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play. No, it was about 20 years ago today that I went down into my little basement office in Madison, Wisconsin, where I lived, and my book had been published. My first book had been published in June, and it had been published really well and had gotten on the bestseller list. And there was a message on my answering machine. And at that time, this is in the end of the 90s, they had little tapes on answering machines. So anyone who called, they only had 6 minutes for all those messages. So this message said, "This is Oprah Winfrey, and I don't know if this is the right number for you or not, but I want to tell you, I have loved the deep end of the ocean more than I've loved any, all the way on to the end of the 6 minute tape." So I erased that because I thought it was somebody horsing around with me. And the next morning, there was another message. "This is Oprah Winfrey, and I don't know if you got my call, but if you did, I would really appreciate it if you could call back. Now, I can't feature your book on the show, but I would just love to talk to you about it because I've loved the deep end of the ocean more." And I erased that too. Okay. So I had another intern at that time named Sean, and he came in and he said, "Jack, I think this really is Oprah Winfrey. And and you shouldn't erase this message. Listen to this one. She's really mad." And the voice was very short. It didn't take up any part of the tape. She said, "This is Oprah Winfrey, and I don't know if you're just the rudest person in the world or if you didn't get my call, but if you did and you still live here, I would really appreciate it if you would return my phone call. Thanks." And so I started laughing. I called her back, and after a while, she started laughing too. And she said, "I can't have your book on the show because, um, TV and reading, these are incompatible media. And it'd just be voyage to the bottom of the ratings. I've tried to have books on the show. They never do anything but get people to change the channel." I said, "That's okay. Thanks for calling." And we said goodbye. And then the next day she called back and left a message, which I did answer and I didn't erase it. And it said, "You know what? We're going to start the world's largest book club. And we're going to start it with the deep end of the ocean." And so I called her back. And now you'd imagine you'd be pretty thrilled by that, right? Right. Well, I didn't know what to think because I had been told this wouldn't do any good. And my publisher said, "At least if there's never a second Oprah Winfrey book, you'll always have been the first." And so we went to Chicago, my son and I, and we brought Oprah Winfrey and her staff rubber cheese heads from Wisconsin because we knew that they really wanted them, but they didn't know how to ask. And indeed they were thrilled. You could tell how thrilled they were. No one had ever even offered them anything like that. And the show went on, and by that night, at the main branch of the New York Public Library, there were 4,000 holds on that book. And that's why she's Oprah Winfrey and I'm not. Is because we were all wrong about these being incompatible media. Books are meant to be gossiped about. Books are meant to be shared in every form and in every way that they possibly can be, meant to be shared in as many different kinds of ways. And when she finally featured the book on the show after giving everyone a copy and giving them time to read it, she was going to devote half the show to talking about the book and then half the show to talking about some little, I think they were quintuplets or sextuplets or something like that were in the area. And people were furious at those little babies because they had read that book and they wanted to talk about it, by God. And that's when she realized that she needed to make her book club a whole long event with a dinner and everything like that and get the author on. And but mine was the first one, so she didn't have any of those patterns down. And there ended up being 57 books in the first iteration of Oprah Winfrey's book club, 14 of which she still considers the best books she's ever read. And, of course, mine's. I wouldn't have said that otherwise, obviously. I would have just left that part out. But A year ago, Oprah Winfrey called again. My mother in law was there, and she was doing the last interviews that she was ever going to do for a show called Where Are They Now? And it was about newsmakers who had been on her show when it was on NBC 20 years before. And I got off the phone, and in the intervening time, okay, I had had a streak of bad luck. Short story. My husband found a uniquely crooked investment advisor who deprived us of, who relieved us of the worry of worrying about all the lots of dollars that I had made through being frugal and a good writer. So we don't have them anymore, and he's in the penitentiary. And not my husband. Though sometimes, no, I've forgiven him. This is 5 years ago, and I've forgiven him. And he knows every day. I remind him every day that I've forgiven him. So Oprah Winfrey called. She knew about this. She knew that I had a new book coming out, and she asked me if I wanted to come on her show. And my mother-in-law was there. And my mother-in-law said to me, "You don't want to listen to the name of that show. Where Are They Now? Makes you sound like some old has-been. You don't want to go on that show because people are going to say she's going to make it like you're David Cassidy or something, and you put all that money up your nose. And she's going to talk about hardship, and you're going to come out looking like a fool." And I thought, gee, I said no. And I thought, I said no thanks. And then I thought about it, and I realized that the one thing that my mother-in-law had an interest in that I didn't in that situation was that it was her son's fault that I was in all this trouble. And I thought, that makes sense, and I didn't think about that. But the producers called back a few months later, and they said, "Well, we don't understand why you won't do this. We mean you no harm, and we mean the book every good thing." And so I went on the show, and it was really I had a quid pro quo. It was that my 17-year-old daughters, Maria and Merritt, get to come with me and stay at the hotel. And so and nothing else had happened. They got their picture taken with Oprah, and now when they walk into Nauset Regional High School, people stand because they are personal friends with Oprah Winfrey. And it turned out to be a great deal of fun. And Oprah Winfrey said to me, "This book, the Two of by Sea, it's about a guy who loses everything. And he has to fight his way back under extraordinary circumstances to try to reclaim his life and to try to save the things most important to him. It's really about you." I said, "No, it isn't. It's about a guy and a horse and a little kid." And she said, "No, read it again." It really is about you, and you were writing this book because of what happened to you. And I thought about it, and it really is. And that also is why she's Oprah Winfrey, and I'm not.